One of the fastest ways for a new CFO to lose credibility is poor data quality. The numbers exist, but they don't quite tie together, and confidence can disappear quickly. So, in this video, I'll explain why this happens in startups, and by the end, the steps that you need to take to rebuild trust in your numbers without trying to fix everything at once. Hi, my name's Alysha Randall. I'm a fractional CFO and also an author of Financial Leadership Fundamentals, How to Become a CFO in a Startup or Scale Up. If that sounds interesting to you, then please click on the subscribe button below. As I mentioned, one of the quickest ways for a finance leader to lose credibility in a startup or scale up is poor data quality. So the tricky part is that the numbers usually exist. There are reports, there's the P&L, there's a dashboard, there's KPIs, and on the surface it might all look fine, but underneath things don't quite line up. So whether that's definitions are fuzzy, customer metrics don't reconcile, cash reports don't tie back. The KPIs are different depending on who you talk to in the business. And when questions start coming from founders, boards, and investors, confidence drops quite quickly. And this is one of the hardest problems that new CFOs can inherit, but also one of the most dangerous if it isn't tackled early. So, what poor data quality actually looks like in practice. So, poor data quality, it rarely shows up as, we don't have the numbers to share with you. It's very rare for a finance leader to say, oh, I don't actually know what that number is. I don't know what the customer numbers is. Let me get back to you. But rather, it's different reports are showing different answers, or revenue numbers that change month to month without a clear explanation, or the customer metrics that don't really tie back to the P&L. So, for example, your customer numbers are increasing, but your revenue is decreasing. Cash forecasts that feel right, but they can't be trusted because there are things always missing or they keep moving. And finance is spending way too much time explaining what the discrepancies are rather than talking about what the numbers are telling us as far as insights into the business is concerned. So over time, if this keeps happening, then people around the business, the board, they'll stop relying on your finance outputs and your reporting, and decisions will get made without you, basically. So they'll be made on gut feel or partial information. And once that happens, it's then really hard to re-establish trust in the business. Why this happens so often in startups? So this problem isn't usually caused by your incompetence, which is good, but rather it's caused by growth and shortcuts. So in early stage businesses, speed really matters. Tools get added really quickly because decisions are made quickly. The business can pivot really quickly. Definitions evolve, processes are lightweight because they need to be. And that's fine until the business reaches a point where more people rely on the numbers, external stakeholders really want consistency and they want to trust the numbers, and decisions carry bigger consequences. And at that point, that's when the cracks can start to show. So that is when finance often inherits legacy data structures, inconsistent revenue logic, metrics that are built for storytelling, but not necessarily for decision making. And suddenly you're expected to stand behind numbers that you didn't decide. So why does your credibility suffer so quickly? So finance leaders are trusted or not based on one thing above else, and that's reliability. You want to be a reliable finance leader. And if your numbers change unexpectedly, they don't reconcile, or they require constant caveats, then people stop listening. So even if the direction is broadly right, this is especially risky for aspiring CFOs. You're often still establishing yourself in the role, and poor data quality can make it look like you don't have control, even when the underlying issues predate you and you've just inherited this. So once credibility takes a hit, even conversations become much harder. So the trap that you can fall into is when faced with this unreliable data, your instinct is to patch. You want to fix it as really quickly. You want to reconcile one issue. You want to explain another. You want to build workarounds. You want to adjust spreadsheets and make everything tie. And you probably will be quite overwhelmed with how much needs to be done and how quickly you need to do it. It might keep things moving in the short term, but it doesn't really solve the real problem. Over time, finance will then become reactive, reporting cycles stretch, confidence erodes further, and you end up spending more time defending the numbers than helping the business move forward. So, what should you do instead? The CFOs who handle this really well do a few things consistently. Number one, they define what good enough looks like. So not everything needs to be perfect immediately, but some things must be solid. Cash reporting, core revenue numbers, key customer metrics, they're all non-negotiable. They focus on making a small set of numbers, like these three, reliable first, and they're clear about what can wait. Number two is they lock down definitions early. Similar type of metrics. So revenue, customers, churn, gross margin. These need to be the same everywhere across the business, across all of the different reporting. And strong finance leaders document definitions, they socialize them with the business, with their business partners, and stick to them. So this then removes confusion and reduces endless debate later. Number three is they prioritize reconciliation over presentation. So before dashboards, before charts, before commentaries, the numbers need to tie. So that means the management accounts to bank, revenue to operational data, KPIs to the P&L. If something doesn't reconcile, it's flagged and fixed rather than being explained away. And number four, they reset expectations. So new leaders who succeed are really explicit early on. So they explain what data can be relied on today, what needs work, and how long improvement will realistically take. And this honesty builds trust far faster than pretending everything is under control. If you're new in a finance leadership role, you may want to consider looking at a video I did earlier this year, which was your first 90 days. So what are the things that you need to do in your first 90 days as a trusted finance leader? And the item I just mentioned is included within it. So take a look at that one. I'll leave a link above. And then why this is a leadership issue and not a technical one. So poor data quality is rarely fixed by a clever model or a new tool on its own. Instead, it requires your judgment. So knowing what matters most, deciding where to invest your efforts, being willing to slow things down briefly to fix foundations. This is one of the moments where finance leaders move from being technically strong to being strategically trusted. So always talk about establishing that baseline. And actually, it's one of the first things that we do in the FLF framework. Apart from your mindset, the next thing is what I call keeping the lights on. And this is really important because you can't really do anything else until you have a solid foundation. So as much as you'd love to start budgeting and doing all the fun strategic things, until you have a solid foundation and a solid baseline, you can't really do anything, and your numbers essentially can't be trusted until you do that first. So this framework I go through in the book and my course, and I also go through it here on this channel, but it's so critical that you focus on the baseline first. As a fractional CFO, I've actually been hired by founders who had to let go a CFO because yes, they were amazing at strategy, but every time they sent to management accounts from the team, they didn't believe the numbers. And so they were let go. So even though the management accounts and financial operations, you've been doing it forever, it is so important that you get that right first before you do everything else. So what does this mean for aspiring CFOs? So if you're stepping into a senior finance role, assume the data quality will be an issue. So your job isn't to make everything perfect immediately. It's basically to create confidence that things are improving in a controlled and transparent way. So that might mean that there are fewer numbers, but they are done properly. You have clear definitions, consistent reconciliation, and honest communication. And if you get that right, then credibility and trust will follow. And if you get it wrong, then every conversation will be harder than it needs to be. So in startups and scale ups, numbers don't need to be beautiful, but they do need to be reliable. And once people trust the data, finance then earns the right to influence decisions. Without that trust, even the best insights will get ignored. So this is one of the most important problems that new CFOs face and one of the earliest that needs to be solved. So if you want to be a confident and skilled finance leader in the next 12 months, I've got a 3-step plan for you. The first one is to subscribe to this channel. I give lots of insights into being a CFO within a startup and things that you can take away from that. The second one is to read my book, Financial Leadership Fundamentals, How to Become a CFO in a Startup or Scale Up, a very practical book on what to do as a finance leader within a startup or scale up. And at the end of every chapter are actions that you can implement immediately. And the final one is to take a look at our FLF course where we go through the FLF framework in much more detail. And we also have Q&A sessions with myself. So thanks so much for watching and I'll see you next week. Cheers.